Hi, first graders. Let's go ahead and finish chapter 1 today. Here, Ramona, you can hold my card, Beezus tried to be comforting. You can pretend it's yours. Ramona brightened at this, and Miss Greaver checked out the books on Beezus's card. As soon as they got home, Ramona demanded, "Read my new book to me." And so Beezus began. Big Steve was a steam shovel. He was the biggest steam shovel in the whole city. When she finished the book, she had to admit she liked Big Steve better than Scoopy. His only sound effects were tooting and growling. He tooted and growled in big letters on every page. Big Steve did not shed tears or want to be a pile driver. He worked hard at being a steam shovel, and by the end of the book, Beezus had learned a lot about steam shovels. Unfortunately, she did not want to learn about steam shovels. Oh well, she guessed she could stand 2 weeks of Big Steve. "Read it again," said Ramona enthusiastically. "I like Big Steve. He's better than Scoopy." "How would you like me to show you how to really write your name?" Beezus asked, hoping to divert Ramona from steam shovels. "Okay," agreed Ramona. Beezus found pencil and paper and wrote Ramona in large, careful letters across the top of the page. Ramona studied it critically. I don't like it," she said at last. "But that's the way your name is spelled," Beezus explained. "You didn't make dots and lines," said Ramona. Seizing the pencil, she wrote I-I-T-T-T-I-T-T-I-I. "But Ramona, you don't understand." Beezus took the pencil and wrote her own name on the paper. "You've seen me write Beatrice, which has an I and a T in it. See, like that. You don't have an I or a T in your name because it isn't spelled that way." Ramona looked skeptical. She grabbed the pencil again and wrote with a flourish. I-I-I-I-T-T-T-T-I-I-I-T-T-T. "That's my name because I like it," she announced. "I like to make dots and lines." Lying flat on her stomach on the floor, she proceeded to fill the whole paper with I's and T's. "But Ramona, nobody's name is spelled with just—" Beezus stopped. What was the use? Trying to explain spelling and writing to Ramona was too complicated. Everything became difficult when Ramona was around, even an easy thing like taking a book out of the library. Well, if Ramona was happy thinking her name was spelled with I's and T's, she could go ahead and think it. The next 2 weeks were fairly peaceful. Mother and Father soon tired of tooting and growling, and like Beezus, they looked forward to the day that Big Steve was due at the library. Father even tried to hide the book behind the radio, but Ramona soon found it. Beezus was happy that one part of her plan had worked. Ramona had forgotten the littlest steam shovel now that she had a better book. On Ramona's second trip to the library, perhaps Miss Evans could find a book that would make her forget about steam shovels entirely. As for Ramona, she was perfectly happy. She had 3 people to read a book out loud to her, and she spent much of her time covering sheets of papers with I's and T's. Sometimes she wrote in pencil, sometimes she wrote in crayon, and once she wrote in ink until her mother caught her at it. Finally, to the relief of the rest of the family, the day came when Big Steve had to be returned. "Come on, Ramona," said Beezus. "It's time to go to the library for another book." "I have a book," said Ramona, who was lying on her stomach, writing her version of her name on a piece of paper with purple crayon. "No, it belongs to the library," Beezus explained, glad for once that Ramona couldn't possibly get her own way. "It's my book," said Ramona, crossing several T's with a flourish. "Beezus is right, dear," observed Mother. "Run along and get Big Steve." Ramona looked sulky, but she went into the bedroom, and in a few minutes she appeared with Big Steve in her hand and a satisfied expression on her face. "It's my book," she announced. "I wrote my name in it." Mother looked alarmed. "What do you mean, Ramona? Let me see." She took the book and opened it. Every page in the book was covered with enormous purple I's and T's in Ramona's very best handwriting. "Mother," cried Beezus, "look what she's done, and in crayon so it won't erase." "Ramona Quimby," said Mother, "you're a very naughty girl. Why did you do a thing like that?" "It's my book," said Ramona stubbornly. "I like it." "Mother, what am I going to do?" Beezus demanded. "It's checked out on my card and I'm responsible. They won't let me take any more books out of the library and I won't have anything to read. And it will all be Ramona's fault. She's always spoiling my fun and it isn't fair." Beezus didn't know what she would do without her library card. She couldn't get along without library books. She just couldn't. That was all. "I do not spoil your fun," stormed Ramona. "You have all the fun. I can't read and it's not fair." Ramona's words ended in a howl as she buried her face in her mother's skirt. "I couldn't read when I was your age, and I didn't have someone to read to me all the time, so it is too fair," argued Beezus. "You always get your own way because you're the youngest." "I do not," shouted Ramona, "and you don't read all the time. You're mean." "I am not mean," Beezus shouted back. "Children," cried Mother, "stop it, both of you. Ramona, you are a very naughty girl." A loud sniff came from Ramona. And Beezus, her mother continued, the library won't take your card away from you. If you'll go get my purse, I'll give you some money to pay for the damage to the book. Take Ramona along with you, explain what happened, and the librarian will tell you how much to pay. This made Beezus feel a lot better. Ramona stalked all the way to the library, but when they got there, Beezus was pleased to see that Miss Evans, the children's librarian, was sitting behind the desk. Miss Evans was the kind of librarian who would understand about little sisters. Hello, Beatrice, said Miss Evans. Is this your little sister I've heard so much about? Beezus wondered what Miss Evans had heard about Ramona. Yes, this is Ramona, she went on hesitantly. And Miss Evans, I'm a bad girl, interrupted Ramona, smiling winningly at the librarian. Oh, you are, said Miss Evans. What did you do? I wrote in a book, said Ramona, not the least ashamed. I wrote in purple crayon, and it will never, never erase. Never, never, never. Embarrassed, Beezus handed Miss Evans Big Steve the steam shovel. Mother gave me the money to pay for the damage, she explained. The librarian turned the pages of the book. Well, you didn't miss a page, did you? She finally said to Ramona. No, said Ramona, pleased with herself, and it will never, ever, ever. I'm awfully sorry, interrupted Beezus. After this, I'll try to keep our library books where she can't reach them. Miss Evans consulted a file of little cards in her drawer. Since every page in the book was damaged and the library can no longer use it, I'll have to ask you to pay for the whole book. I'm sorry, but this is the rule. It will cost $2.50. $2.50? What a lot of things I would have bought, Beezus reflected as she pulled 3 folded dollar bills out of her pocket and handed them to the librarian. Miss Evans put the money in a drawer and gave Beezus 50 cents in change. Then Miss Evans took a rubber stamp and stamped something on the inside of the book. By twisting her head around, Beezus could see that the word was discarded. There, Miss Evans said, pushing the book across the desk. You've paid for it. Now it's yours. Beezus stared at the librarian. You mean to keep? That's right, answered Miss Evans. Ramona grabbed the book. It's mine. I told you it was mine. Then she turned to Beezus and said triumphantly, You said people didn't buy books at the library, and now you just bought one. Buying a book and paying for damage are not the same thing, Miss Evans pointed out to Ramona. Beezus could see that Ramona didn't care. The book was hers, wasn't it? It was paid for and she could keep it. And that's not fair, thought Beezus. Ramona shouldn't get her way just because she had been naughty. But Miss Evans, protested Beezus, if she spoils a book, she shouldn't get to keep it. Now every time she finds a book she likes, she'll... Beezus did not go on. She knew very well what Ramona would do, but she wasn't going to say it out loud in front of her. I see what you mean, Miss Evans looked thoughtful. Give me the book, Ramona, she said. Doubtfully, Ramona handed her the book. Ramona, do you have a library card? Miss Evans asked. Ramona shook her head. Then Beezus must have taken the book out on her card, said Miss Evans. So the book belongs to Beezus. Why, of course. Why hadn't she thought of that before? It was her book, not Ramona's. Oh, thank you, said Beezus gratefully, as Miss Evans handed the book to her. She could do anything she wanted with it. For once Ramona didn't know what to say. She scowled and looked as if she were building up a tantrum. You've got to read it to me, she said at last. Not unless I feel like it, said Beezus. After all, it's my book, she couldn't resist adding. That's not fair. Ramona looked as if she were about to howl. It is too fair, said Beezus calmly, and if you have a tantrum, I won't read it to you at all. Suddenly, as if she decided Beezus meant what she said, Ramona stopped scowling. Okay, she said cheerfully. Beezus watched her carefully for a minute. Yes, she really was being agreeable, thought Beezus with a great feeling of relief. And now that she did not have to read Big Steve unless she wanted to, Beezus felt that she would not mind reading it once in a while. Come on, Ramona, she said. Maybe I'll have time to read to you before Father comes home. Okay, said Ramona happily, as she took Beezus's hand. Miss Evans smiled at the girls as they started to leave. Good luck, Beatrice, she said. Chapter 2 is called Beezus and Her Imagination, and I'll read a couple pages of this before we end today. Beezus and Ramona both looked forward to Friday afternoons after school. Beezus, because she had attended the art class in the recreation center in Glenwood Park. Ramona, because she was allowed to go to the park with Beezus and play in the sand pile until the class was over. This Friday, while Beezus held Ramona by the hand and waited for the traffic light to change from red to green, she thought how wonderful it would be to have the imagination of Ramona's. Oh, you know Ramona. Her imagination runs away with her, Mother said, when Ramona made up a story about seeing a fire engine crash into a garbage truck. That child has an imagination a mile long, the Quimby's grown-up friends remarked when Ramona sat in the middle of the living room floor in a plastic wading pool that she had dragged up from the basement and pretended she was in a boat in the middle of a lake. Did you ever see so much imagination in such a little girl? The neighbors asked one another when Ramona hopped around the yard pretending that she was the Easter bunny. One spring day, Ramona had got lost because she started out to find the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. The rainbow had appeared in the park and not into the park until she reached the park, but then it looked as if it were behind the supermarket. When the policeman brought Ramona home, Father said, "Sometimes I think Ramona has too much imagination." Nobody, reflected Beezus, ever says anything about my imagination. Nobody at all. And she wished more than anything that she had imagination. How pleased Miss Robbins, the art teacher, would be if she had an imagination like Ramona's. Unfortunately, Beezus was not very good at painting, at least not the way Miss Robbins wanted boys and girls to paint. She wanted them to use their imagination and to feel free. Beezus still squirmed with embarrassment when she thought of her first painting, a picture of a dog with bow wow coming out of its mouth and a balloon. Miss Robbins pointed out that not only in the funny papers did dogs have bow wow coming out of their mouths and balloons, bow wow and a balloon was not art. When Miss Robbins did think one of Beezus's paintings was good enough to put up on the wall, she always tacked it way down at the end, never in the center. Beezus wished she could have a painting in the center of the wall. "Hurry up, Ramona," Beezus coaxed. Then she noticed that her sister was dragging a string along behind her. "Oh, Ramona," she protested, "why do you have to bring Ralph with you?" Ralph was an imaginary green lizard, and Ramona liked to pretend that she was leading him by a string. "I love Ralph," said Ramona firmly, "and Ralph likes to go to the park." Beezus knew it was easier to pretend to go along with Ramona than to make her stop. Anyway, it was better to have her pretend to lead a lizard than to pretend to be a lizard herself. "Can't you carry him?" she suggested. "No," Ramona said. "He's slimy." When the girls came to the shopping district, Ramona had to stop at the drugstore scales, pretend to weigh herself while Beezus held Ralph's string.